In a big move after the Prime Minister's nudge today, the centre decided to re-examine the sedition law. In an affidavit filed in the top court, the centre said that after having considered concerns of civil liberties and human rights, the decision has been taken to reconsider provisions of Section 124A. The government also urged the Supreme Court to defer proceedings in the case till the review exercise is carried out. It is extremely significant given that 124A is singularly the one law that has been criticized for misuse to strangle voices of opposition or those who are anti-establishment. The irony, though, is that the man who has been called Hitler, the enemy of free speech, the person who is running a dictatorship, the person responsible for the death of democracy is finally the one who has actually buckled down to review and perhaps reform a law who many think is very, very draconian and very, very archaic. What happens then to the entire India has become intolerant argument?
Today we have made it very clear through an affidavit. We have conveyed the intention of the Government of India. Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji has clearly stated and directed that we will reconsider and re-examine the provisions of the sedition law. Prime Minister Modi ji has already taken a decision to remove all the obsolete and colonial laws which are irrelevant in today's time. And in the process, we have already removed close to 1,500 obsolete laws. So in the same manner, with regard to sedition law, Prime Minister's direction is very clear.
देखिए, जहाँ तक सरकार का ये नज़रिया है कि इस केस को री-एग्जामिन करना है, ये एक अच्छी बात है, प्रोग्रेसिव है और सारे देश को इसका समर्थन करना चाहिए। मैं इसका समर्थन करता हूँ क्योंकि मेरा ये मानना है कि जितने भी लोग इस देश में सेडिशन लॉ के दुरुपयोग को लेकर चिंतित हैं, उनकी भावनाओं का आदर हुआ है और देश के एहसास और भावना का आदर हुआ है।
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Sanju Verma continues with us. We are joined by Prateek Som, advocate, Gokul Chandran, political analyst, Riju Datta, spokesperson of TMC. And my first question is to Aditya Ranjan, advocate in the Supreme Court. Is this that awkward moment where the man who's supposed to be the enemy of free speech actually decides to do away with the law that is the biggest curb on free speech? Aditya Ranjan.
See, what he has, an affidavit has been filed in Supreme Court that this law will be reconsidered. That is a good step by the government of India presently, but we do not know what is the time frame within which this will be considered. And when this matter is pending before Supreme Court, what is the need of saying that we will re-examine? Supreme Court can also re-examine this issue. The government, a few days back, the stand of the government was something different. The Attorney General has said that the Kedarnath judgment should not be revisited. Now the government is saying that this will re-examine this issue.
Okay, so Sanju Verma, essentially the government is preempting embarrassment in Supreme Court and trying to take the moral high ground here.
No longer amused. Whatever the Modi government does, there is this perennial bunch of pessimists and people who believe whatever Modi government does, we are damned if we do, we are damned if we don't. It is true that the Kedarnath judgment of 1962 versus the Union of India has by and large stood the test of time. It is also true that in the recent past, Tushar Mehta has said that there is no need to summarily revisit the Kedarnath judgment. It is also true that the MOS Home Nityanand Rai in July 2019 said that there is no proposal to scrap the sedition law. There is a need to retain the provision to effectively combat anti-national, secessionist and terrorist elements. Now what has changed? What has changed is simply this, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, I have no qualms in saying the biggest champion of free speech, free thought, freedom of expression and civil liberties, has said that we need to shed colonial baggage The sedition law came into being in 1870, thanks to Thomas Macaulay. Now we don't know whether the law is completely repealed.
If this is about the biggest champion of free speech, then why not in the last 7 years? And in the last 7 years, this very law has been used to book people.
You know, Padmaja, let me complete. You've raised an important point. I don't get this argument. Why not 7 years back? So I can turn that argument and say, thank God we are doing it in the 75th year of independence. Had it not been for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, another 75 years and nothing could be done. Have we forgotten what Congress did to Asim Trivedi?
Okay.
Have we forgotten what happened to... Just 1 minute. In 2012, you need to know the statistics because people have been giving out wrong statistics and saying Congress or BJP to ek jaise hain. Ek jaise nahi hai. In 2012, 56,000 people were detained arbitrarily, 20 arbitrary arrests were made, and 9,000 people were slapped with sedition charges when they protested against the nuclear plant that was coming up in Tamil Nadu. Whereas on your own channel today you have shown that in the last 6 to 7 years of the Modi government, only 326 sedition cases have been slapped. So please don't create a false sense of equivalence. The Modi government has used sedition sparingly.
That is not true actually, because in 2019 the sedition cases actually rose by 25% as compared to the previous year, and the arrests went up by 41% over the previous year. So year on year the use of the sedition law and arrests under sedition have gone up. But that being said, Riju Datta, सुबह का भूला अगर शाम को घर आए तो वो भूला नहीं कहलाता, क्योंकि पिछले 70 सालों से लोग तो भूले ही थे ना.
सही बात है, सही बात है. You know, if the BJP had the right intention in their heart, they should have done away with the sedition law, but like the way they are doing by passing an ordinance. By the time this debate got over, the Prime Minister, by a stroke of his pen, would have already snapped it off. These are all techniques to save face, but the bottom line is, yes, sedition law does
save
not
face
have
from
any
what?
place.
What does he need to save face from? It's not as if there is some great opposition marches happening on the streets demanding repeal of sedition. I mean, if anything, everyone is happily employing the sedition law themselves.
No, I'll answer you. And I'll answer you with data. In the BJP regime, the implementation or the misuse of sedition law has gone up by 160%, where the conviction rate is 3%, which means BJP has misused it to suppress the voice of dissent against journalists, authors, students, and activists. And if you see NCRB data, the top 5 states that have implemented sedition law year after year are BJP ruled states. This is the reality. This is data. They cannot falsify this. But the bottom line is, Padmaja, I'm being very honest about it before you go to somebody else, is that I can love my country, I can be a nationalist, but at the same time, I can also vehemently criticize the government.
No, but that is exactly what is being done now.
That does not make me an anti-national. BJP needs to understand dissent does not mean sedition. If they're so fragile that one...
But they are saying we are reforming it. They are saying we are... Okay, so exactly what the affidavit today says is there are concerns about misuse of this law and the conditions under which this is to be employed. We are going to relook it.
पद्मजा, आप लोगों को गोली मारोगे फिर बोलोगे हम गन लॉ को रिफॉर्म करेंगे. कैसा तमाशा चल रहा है ये? They have implemented the most sedition law and now they are...
Sanju Verma respond. Sanju Verma respond.
दुनिया में लोग.
But the counter to that could be they are taking away from themselves the right for goli maroing for the next 3 years, no?
They are like Gautam Buddha. Every 7 years they get enlightened.
You will have to give me my
Okay, epiphany and enlightenment happening too late. Sanju Verma.
You know, Padmaja, जो एक कहावत है ना, the pot calling the kettle black, हाथी के दांत खाने के और दिखाने के और एक मशहूर कहावत है, चोरी ऊपर से सीना चोरी. The Trinamool Congress, Mamata Banerjee as Chief Minister in 2012 April arrested under Section 66A and 66 the Information Technology Act a 65-year-old professor called Ambikesh Mahapatro. Why? Simply because he forwarded.
If somebody tarnishes, if somebody tarnishes the image of my Prime Minister, I will also say go and arrest him.
No, Padmaja,
don't debate, madam. Don't talk utter gibberish, madam. I will never interrupt you. If somebody
Okay, just a second, sir. Just a second. You know, I very interesting.
I need my time.
Just before you finish, let me add a very small point also to Riju Datta.
Please.
If sedition charges are so anathema to the Trinamool Congress, why is it that on the 26th of July 2021, the KLO chief, only because he called your chief minister an outsider, was charged under UAPA, the Kamtapur Liberation Organization? He said the chief minister is an outsider and her government is a foreign government. He was charged under UAPA and sedition. Why? Food for thought, no? Anyway, go on, finish your point. Sanju Verma.
I don't understand this. I don't interject, but the moment I make my point, this man from Trinamool Congress, he starts jumping, shouting.
Okay, go on, finish your point.
Yes, I'm finishing my point. My point is this. Trinamool Congress and a fascist Mamata Banerjee are the last people on this earth who should give a bhashan to the BJP on sedition or freedom of speech. You should be ashamed. Arresting a 65-year-old Jadavpur University professor when Mamata Banerjee was not even directly or indirectly targeted.
Sorry, I have to interject here. You did not give an 80-year-old man a sipper in the jail.
Okay, again, we will not do this whataboutery. You're talking about Stan Swami. By the way, the job to give that sipper was the Maharashtra Prison Department, which reports to the Maharashtra government. But anyway, these are just facts. Never let facts come in the way of a TV debate. But Gokul Chandran, again, a party that brought in teeth or harsher teeth to the sedition law, but is supposed to be the truly democratic party. And then a party that is thinking of watering down the sedition law, but it's supposed to be the dictatorial party. Something is not adding up.
Good evening, Padmaja. If you ask me if sedition laws are required, I would say on my personal capacity that these laws are required. But the problem here is the misuse of the law by the governments, let it be the central government or the state governments. We are misusing the law even for small issues. If somebody congratulates Pakistan on their win in a cricket match, the sedition charges are being charged over them. You use sedition laws very judiciously.
That is why the Congress government is hounding Chopra and trying to arrest him despite a court order saying that he should not be arrested. And you are sitting here giving a bhashan about the Congress.
What should I do?
Okay, just a second, please, people. Just a second. Okay, again, I sense we are going to go down that road of whataboutery. So, Prateek Som, just tell me this. Is it possible to water down a law to the extent that it is immune to misuse?
Padmaja, see today the court has come down.
Understand that framing of law and amendment of law is the prerogative of the government. All right. Thereafter, checking the constitutional validity of that law comes under the prerogative of judiciary under the concept of judicial review. See, conferring a legitimacy to a process which is not even mandated by constitution, in my opinion, it is not correct. We have to see that when we talk about sedition law, it dates back to 1860. What other panelists are talking about, BJP and Congress, they're not even aware that sedition law was even applied to impose to Bal Gangadhar Tilak. It is a 150-year-old law. This needs a very good deliberation. In 1962, Supreme Court has already given a very fine judgment which creates a delicate balance between freedom of speech and expression and also the interest of the state to regulate people who talk about the government in the negative sense. See, now when we are debating on this, instances of abuse, in my opinion, cannot be a ground for reconsidering a law which has been very well validated in 1962 by Supreme Court itself. Okay. Now, some instances where the central government has been criticized, now, coming to the court and getting a, again a reference for this particular law, now the government needs time. That is the only point in contention today. Government needs time to reconsider its stand on the sedition law after the Kedar Singh judgment. So there is no harm when the 150-year-old law needs to be reconsidered. Government ought to have a time and then it is always available for judicial review by the Supreme Court.
All right, I'm going to have to leave it at that. To what extent there is going to be a rethink or reframing of the law, that is going to be crucial in the coming days about shaping our debate around freedom of speech. Thank you very much, all gentlemen, Sanju Verma, for joining me. Thanks for watching.